Hey everyone, thank you for joining today's keynote. I'm Jeremy. As been introduced, I'm leading business operations at Hyperbolic. Hyperbolic is basically building a decentralized AI infrastructure, and we'll be explaining a little bit more, about the company, what we're doing, a little bit more about the team, our vision, our roadmap, all of our accomplishments so far, and happy to answer some questions at the end. So as I mentioned, we're decentralizing the cloud. We're basically building AI's open future. So first and foremost, I wanted to give sort of like a quick background on the team, our leadership, and our advisors. So on the left, you can see Dr. Jasper Zhang, who is the CEO and co-founder of Hyperbolic. Jasper is sort of like a math wizard. He won the Chinese, the gold medal at the Chinese Math Olympiad. He won the gold medal at the Russian Math Olympiad, and then went to Peking University, which is the best university in China, where he actually was valedictorian. Because of that, he actually even met with Xi Jinping. He then moved to the US in 2018 to pursue his PhD at UC Berkeley. He did his PhD actually in topology and hyperbolic manifolds, hence the name of the company. He actually proved a theorem that no one ever proved before in less than 2 years, so he graduated the fastest ever in the history of Berkeley in less than 2 years. He then went to work at Citadel Securities and basically was a quant researcher there, and eventually moved to Avalanche, where I got to meet him later on. On the right, we have Dr. Yuchen Jin, who is our CTO and co-founder. Yuchen is more of an AI wizard. He went to University of Washington to pursue his CS PhD, and he did it in specialized in AI systems, and he went to work at a company called Octo AI, which is a company that's focusing on AI compilers. I'll explain a little bit more in the slides, in the next slides. But basically, this company was bought by NVIDIA, and it's what he's been working on there is very, very important to our tech and to what we're doing. This is really quickly our advisors. So we have Dr. Wenlo Chin, who's the co-founder and chief architect at Databricks. We have 3 amazing professors. So Raluca Papa is like top 5 worldwide expert in computer security, and she's been helping us a lot with proof of sampling, which I'll explain a little bit later. We have Prof. Siamak Moalemi, who's the sole research advisor at Paradigm, and he's also an amazing professor in business at the Business School of Columbia, and he helped us a lot with the tokenomics. And eventually Prof. Hima, who's a legend in AI, who's a fellow of IEEE, ACM, and SIAM, which are like the highest, most prestigious, places to be when you're in AI. And he's the head of CS and chair professor in AI at Hong Kong University. So a little bit more now about Hyperbolic. So as I mentioned, we're basically building the decentralized cloud for open source AI, but what does this really mean? We have 4 core offerings. The first one is the GPU marketplace. The second one is the inference service, the third one is the proof of sampling, and the fourth is agent framework. So the GPU marketplace, first, what does this mean? I know there's a lot of teams that have been working on this, so I'm guessing some of you might be familiar with that. But the idea is really simple. We are connecting idle GPU resources coming from multiple sources. It can be data centers, it can be on-prem, other clouds, mining farms, as well as in the future, very soon, individual machines. And we're basically plugging them in to our network in order to show the listing of those GPUs to our user base. The second product is inference services. So on top of the GPU orchestration layer, we wanted to add AI services, and we got started with inference. The idea is really, really simple. It's because for inference, you don't need huge amounts of machines, basically. You don't need a lot of GPUs. Like the biggest, to give you an idea, the biggest open source model today is DeepSeek. It's roughly 685 billion parameters. And for that, you will need tops 2 machines of H200s or H100s to run it. So it means top 16 GPUs, very different from training workloads, which are requiring way bigger amounts of machines. Number 3 is proof of sampling, so I'll dig a little bit more into that after, but basically the idea is that there are some mechanisms to, like verification mechanisms, basically when you're adding third-party nodes in a permissionless way, like consensus, OPML, ZKML, but we invented our own specifically for this workload, which is the most promising one. The 4th one is agent framework, and I'm going to dig a little bit more. This is a new one. So we're very, very proud to say that today we're the most popular decentralized infrastructure, and we actually those numbers need to be updated, but a couple weeks ago we were at 165,000 AI developers on Hyperbolic. We're almost at 200K today. We have amazing Web2 clients, so big universities and research labs all around the world, like Stanford, Berkeley, NYU, Cornell, UCSD, and a bunch of others, as well as Quora, Hugging Face, Vercel, and many others that I'm going to be showing really quickly right after. We're also powering top crypto AI projects, so we're powering Eliza, we're powering Virtual, Solang, Arc, Zerobro. We're very, very close to EigenLayer. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later on, as well as some other teams that are building really, really fun things in AI. So, as I explained really briefly earlier on the GPU marketplace, what we're doing is that we're this sort of like globally distributed compute network. And the advantage of that is when you mix this with crypto, you can have things that traditional clouds or data centers cannot offer. So what we can offer that's very different is we can actually provide to the suppliers of compute on Hyperbolic a hybrid compensation between cash and crypto. And this hybrid compensation makes it such that we can actually subsidize the cost of compute and offer compute at a price that's unparalleled anywhere. So to give you an idea, we can go up to 75% cost reductions. We've had in the past went even actually up more than that, like 80, 85%. I don't know if you're familiar with the pricing of GPUs, but for an H100, usually it goes at really, really high levels, like if you go on AWS or GCP or Azure, where when you go to the traditional hyperscalers. But the reality is, it can go up to like $5, $6 per hour, and we, in the past, have been offering them at 99 cents per hour, and today you can find on Hyperbolic at like 1.2, 1.3. And this is actually the real, important thing in the world of AI today, because the real issue is that amazing, brilliant researchers and developers all around the world are just blocked not by their creativity but by the pricing, and because of that it's only the enterprise that can innovate, which is very frustrating. The second thing is open source intelligence. So I think this is a very, very important concept that everyone needs to grasp, is that open source, I'm based in San Francisco, Hyperbolic is based there, we're really at the forefront of everything that's happening in AI, and we can see sort of like this, obviously all around the world we saw it with DeepSeek, but we can see that there's really this trend way before DeepSeek of people, companies, developers, researchers that are turned around open source AI, way more than proprietary. Building a model today is becoming a commodity, and so for open source, the really, really good thing is that you can get access to the weights and biases, and that you can offer way more innovation to the people who are really making moves in AI. In other words, developers, researchers, etc. And so that's the reason why we decided to only host open source model since the beginning, 2 years ago, on Hyperbolic, on our inference dashboard. But on top of that is how can we monetize open source? It's really, really tough. The only company that was able to do so in the past was Meta, because they have tons of money and they can burn $15 billion to build Llama. The reality, and then they see the impact on their stock market afterwards, so it's not a problem to burn this money. But for anyone else, it's really tough. It's really competitive, and it's hard to come up into a place that's becoming more and more commoditized. Building something that's becoming more and more commoditized and not earning this money. So that's the reason why we're doing revenue sharing models. We started doing this with Flux, which is the best image generation model in open source. So we're working really closely with Black Forest Labs for that, and hopefully we'll be able to do so with all of the different open source projects in the future, and this is thanks to crypto. So this is just a screenshot showing one of our few, there are a couple screenshots that are coming in, one of our few very strong Web2 partners. So we're very, very proud to say that we're the only Web3 company that's providing serverless inference on Hugging Face. For those of you who don't know, Hugging Face is a very, very famous company amongst developers and data scientists, and coders all around the world. And we're basically offering sort of like a new distribution channel for us because people from all around the world are going on Hugging Face, and if they want to try DeepSeek or a couple other models, they can actually browse and check whether it can be Hyperbolic or a bunch of other providers, and then either use it directly on Hugging Face or just convert into our app. This is another screenshot of Poe by Quora, which is one of the latest apps that Quora has integrated, and basically we are providing here some of the open source models that we are offering also on Hyperbolic. This is the last screenshot that I want to share with you here. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Andrej Karpathy. Andrej Karpathy is one of the founding team members of OpenAI, and he used to be the head of AI at Tesla. He's one of the maybe top 5 most AI prominent figure in the world today, and he's basically giving talks and giving also some courses online, like on his YouTube channel. And so in his latest video, dating back from February, around LLMs, he actually made a shout out saying that Hyperbolic is his favorite place to use base models, which is something we're offering. And this brought in a ton of attention to us from developers all around the world, and a ton of traction, which is really fun. So going back a little bit more into the Web3 world right now, and the intersection between AI and Web3, we really want to have the end of this black box of AI. So as I mentioned before, we're sourcing GPUs from all around the world, from different sources, data centers, on-prem, also clouds, mining farms, but we're soon going to be opening this up to individual machines. So let's say you have a MacBook Pro latest generation, let's say you have an NVIDIA 3090 or 4090 at home, you're not utilizing all the time, you can basically share it into our network and then basically get to monetize it. The reality around this is that if you're doing it in a third party, in a permissionless way as a third party node, I mentioned it before briefly, we have Consensus, we have ZKML, OPML. None of them are really practical. It's usually a major computational overhead. And so we created a new solution and a new standard for AI accountability, which is our verification mechanism called proof of sampling. So what is really interesting is that, as mentioned, like on Consensus, you have a 10x overhead if it's reproduced by 10 nodes. If it's going to be 100, if it's reproduced by 100 nodes, and so on and so forth. It's linear. For OP, you have actually a low computational overhead, but the problem is that it's not, obviously, as you all know, as secure as ZK and other alternatives. And then ZK is going to be the most secure, as you all know. The problem, though, is that it's a huge computational overhead, and so it's really, really not practical when you want to basically adapt it to the world of AI. And so that's the reason why we created our own. The way it's working, so like a pure Nash equilibrium kind of like aspect. I didn't share the slides here in terms of how it's working, but if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. So this is really briefly our agent framework. So what we're doing is that we are basically saying that like AI is evolving beyond static models and single-use applications, and we got started with something that's pretty fun. Because we're building like an AI infrastructure, what we did is we spin up a smart wallet to our agents. We injected some crypto inside, and basically we made our agent call the API to check which GPU is available in Hyperbolic, and once they can grasp this GPU, they can basically live on Hyperbolic. They can ingest a specific data set and become a more verticalized version of themselves, and sort of like fine-tune themselves and becoming more specialized in the field. They can literally become an operator on EigenLayer. They can become like a validator on Ethereum and a bunch of other things. So it's really, really fun to do those experiments. Obviously, as you all know, we're all talking about agents. I'm the most excited about this next step of growth. It's just that things are coming not as quick as what we were all hoping it would be, even though we're really, really close to having like really strong use cases. And I think in a couple months this will be really, really big for us. So hopefully we'll get to share it then. This is basically coming back to what I mentioned before, this economic layer. The first step of this economic layer is like monetizing open source, which is really, really important. And the second step is really trying to make sure that we can actually reward developers or anyone all around the world now that can actually have some compute and share it on Hyperbolic. So this is a really, really important, new economic paradigm that is really changing the world compared to before when the big hyperscalers were capturing 99% of the market. I'm not talking just about what we're doing. I'm not talking about also what the other Web3 AI projects are doing. I'm also talking about like the fact that now we have more and more emerging neoclouds and that we have more and more, basically, clouds that are taking over sort of like this dominance of the big ones. So as sort of like a recap and summary of everything that I mentioned, this is our ecosystem architecture. So as you can see, we have the decentralized orchestration layer, as I mentioned, that is coming from those data centers, mining farms, individual on-prem. That is basically, on top of that, we're building the AI services. Everything that is in purple is built by Hyperbolic. Everything that is in white is not built by us. It's basically being built by other companies. Maybe it will be built by us in the future, or we're just gonna, collab with those companies. So we started with the inference. So we have image generation, LLM. We support text-to-speech, soon video gen in an open source way. And then basically, we're gonna potentially work on fine-tuning, native fine-tuning. Training, there are some amazing companies in this space that are working on this, and we have high trust that they're gonna crack this down, even though it's very technically hard and physically hard. And once they do crack this down, we're gonna partner with them. And then on the left side, decentralized evaluation service, I'll talk a little bit more about this. I don't think we have much time. And then our agent framework, as I mentioned, and then there's a bunch of amazing companies that are building like, space and time that are working on like vector embedding, vector database. We have like, Bagel and a bunch of other ones. And then application layer is basically what are the intentions of all of this infra to be working on. And then on the right side, you can see that integrating a little bit more the Web3 side of everything, which is the verification layer, proof of sampling that we got to create, where someday we'll be able to, in a very soon near future, we'll be able to build our own blockchain that can be sort of like an SP rollup instead of like a ZK rollup. Built on top of the proof of sampling, and then adding a little bit later in the future the privacy layer with confidential computing using TEs, and basically thanks to that targeting even more bigger Web2 AI companies, even though we're already doing so. So this is our ecosystem map. We have amazing, as I mentioned, research partners. LMSys is one of them. It's the company that's built Chatbot Arena, which I don't know for those of you who are familiar with this, but it's something I highly recommend for you to see. Building the world's number one leaderboard that is comparing all of the different models that are being out. It's maybe the most followed website by Elon Musk and Sam Altman and Zuckerberg today, because they're all competing in all of those models, as well as the founders of DeepSeek, etc. So we're also providing compute to NYU, Cornell, UCSD, as I mentioned, as well as a bunch of other companies. On the data side, we're working very closely to Zero G, Space and Time, Sahara, Vana, and a bunch of other teams that are amazing. Training, as I mentioned before, Prime Intellect is an amazing partner, as well as Flock. And then on the restaking side, we're working very closely to EigenLayer, Karak, Exocore, I mean, there's a bunch of amazing teams. I don't have the time to tell, to share more on all of those teams. So that was basically the presentation on Hyperbolic. If you want to follow the CEO's Twitter, always very, very interesting, our X account, as well as our Discord. Thank you for listening to the presentation.
All right.